Now, you mentioned about how you've had so many struggles throughout life and you've overcome all of it to become, the successful man that you are now. What do you think? I mean, what do you contribute that to? Is it because you've always been optimistic in your life, or is it the way you process things as far as eventually through your belief in God, strong belief in God, that He's going to lead you to where you need to be? I mean, what has contributed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
your
The
to your
biggest,
ability to stand up from all the the many times that you've fallen?
the strong will, the belief in God, and the biggest thing also was a big motivator for me was my father. My father came over here and he worked hard for the first few years, and he continued working hard. But the first few years, he saved some money, and he had a good heart. And his brothers and sisters migrated before him, and his brothers became businessmen here. And when he got here, he worked for a few years, and then he was going to open a business, and they ended up his older brothers coming to him and telling him, let's be partners in a restaurant. And it didn't, and it my dad ended up going partners with them. And after a couple of months, the place took off, and my dad didn't have proper documents signed with them. And because he believed in morals and values, that the oldest, back then, the oldest, you put everything in the oldest name. And they ended up screwing him over, and he was very miserable about that, and he took that hard on himself, and he didn't end up being successful in business and financially. So he got beat up, and I knew from my father, being a good guy without restrictions and red lines, you'll be taken advantage of in life. There's no mercy. So I learned that at a young age. You got to really rely on yourself, and trust yourself and trust God. And yeah, that's
Were
so
your
every obstacle that I had, I would remember that. If I'm gonna fail, I remember my dad. He ended up failing with certain things, and I said I'm not. And I made it a big deal for me in my life that I wanted to prove to my dad, if he didn't let life beat him up, look what he could have been through me. And thank God, he passed away 12 years ago, and his tongue was filled with Ali, my son Ali, what he did this. So I made him proud, and I became very successful before he passed away, and I proved my point to him, and I continue proving that, to myself, to my kids, and to everybody that's close to me, and now to the people that are watching.
Now, were your uncles? Because it sounds like your father, your father was also a man of God, but were your uncles not so religious? Because you're Muslim, correct?
When people say man of God, or religious, everybody has their own way of being religious, and it shows on your characters, it shows on your integrity. Not everybody says that I'm religious, they're really religious, or God is really listening to them. But yeah, they supposedly were religious, but what's the point of praying on a rug, and saying I'm Muslim or I'm religious, and your actions with other things, are not as a Muslim or as a good person.
That's
That's
why I'm asking you that question, because there are so many people that
right.
hide behind their religion. Well, I'm Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew, whatever they believe in. But yet, when you look at their actions, for example, in your uncle's cases, they ended up screwing their younger brother, which is obviously very unethical and immoral to do something like that. That's why, to me, religion is not necessarily, when I look at somebody, yeah, I go to church or this is what I do. That doesn't necessarily make me trust them, because in my experience, a lot of people these days who do go to church typically do have some type of past or kind
Issues.
of issues where they're trying to,
Or still have it.
yeah, they're like born again Christians or born again whatever they identify as. So for me, it's important for, as a human being, as a man, for you to have principles and values that you stand on, versus just, well, you don't trust me, I'm a fellow Christian. No, just because you're a fellow Christian, I don't trust you. I'm a Christian myself, but that doesn't mean I trust you just because you're a fellow Christian.
It's your
And
actions and your past and what you're doing now, who's around you, where you getting your money, where how you practicing your faith. See people say I'm Muslim or I'm Christian. They own go-go bars, they own bars, they own alcohol bars. This is all, that's not true connection with God. That's just what you said earlier, a disguise behind the religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, they use it as some sort of shield to
Yeah.
make themselves look like a saint at this point.
Yeah, and then they show you the other qualities that they have that they're hiding. Yeah, of course. Not many people come in telling you, they're showing you their knife that they're about to put behind your back. They're gonna come, all nice and all great, whether it's with religion or whatever, and then at the end of the day you see the true colors. So that's the hard thing in life, that you gotta learn to navigate people through that.